Anyway, I'm really glad you're here. Folks, welcome to another episode of Working Class. I'm your host, Attorney Ryan, and with me, I have Allison Peck, also known as Alli From Corporate. She is a career expert, a recruitment expert, office culture expert, and we're really lucky to have you here from Las Vegas.
I'm so excited to be here. Not so excited about the fog.
I'm sorry about that.
California weather is like, everybody loves the weather in California, but I'm sorry, this ain't it.
It's funny. It is foggy and cold, but I read an article that said that LA got more rain this year so far than Seattle did.
No.
Yeah.
What's happening in the world?
I don't know. And apparently there's tornadoes here now.
And Dubai is like underwater. I thought that was the desert.
I heard that had something to do with cloud seeding.
I heard that it didn't. I heard
am I pushing a conspiraccy theory?
You are. You are. I heard it did not.
I end up on the wrong side of YouTube. It's like, oh yeah, they're seeding the clouds. I think it's true.
If anybody listening to this knows the truth, please comment and tell us like what the truth is, because I've heard that it wasn't cloud seeding and you're hearing it is. So what? I don't know.
Don't invite people to share their truth, because that goes down a weird. Y'all are fooled. The Earth is flat. It's just gonna get weird.
Oh my god.
But anyway, I'm glad you're here, Allison, because there's a lot I wanted to talk about today. The first is a hot button issue that I know you have experience with, and I think we might have different opinions on. I'm not sure, and it has to do with performance improvement plans.
Ooh, PIPs.
I got put on 2 in my career.
Okay.
Once was at this bullshit office job. I was a healthcare recruiter. Basically, I recruited travel nurses for a little bit.
Oh.
Terrible office environment. Great people. Loved the coworkers, but management was just atrocious. And I got put on a performance improvement plan because I was supposed to make 80 calls a day, and I had like a 2-week stretch where I was making like 60 calls a day.
And that wasn't enough?
It wasn't enough.
Wow.
And I honestly, I was demotivated. I was getting a little burnout, and I was short on my calls. So they pulled me in, they had me sign it and promised to make more calls, and I did, and I got pulled off the PIP. So
you survived a PIP?
I survived 2. So that was the most recent one. And then oh my God, this was so bad. Both PIPs were my fault. I want to be clear. Both were my fault. The first time I ever got written up at work, it was actually, I think, 2013, and I was a firefighter for CAL FIRE. I was such an idiot. I was 23 years old. I was so dumb. I read my calendar wrong. I didn't realize that I had an overtime shift the next day. So that evening, I went out partying with friends in Pacific Beach. We stayed out till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I crashed on my buddy's couch in PV. And then the next day, I wake up not feeling great, obviously. And I had a bunch of calls from the station and my captain, and I could just feel like all of my guts just sink to the pit of my stomach.
That's the worst feeling when you get
all the calls from work. When you wake up, you're hungover. Like, why is work calling me? It's my day off.
God.
And I call them. They're like, Steiger, where the fuck are you? I'm like, I'm off. It's my day off. They're like, no, it's not. You're on the overtime calendar. It's like, oh my God. So I had to get a ride up to my parents' place that was like 20 minutes away. It's where my car was. Back up my shit. I got to the station like 4 hours after my shift was supposed to start.
And they put you on a PIP because of that?
They put me on a PIP because of that.
That was a one-time thing, though.
And you know what? With the fire service, it's tough because when you come on duty, you're relieving someone else. So someone else got stuck on duty because of my screw up. Like, it affects everyone.
Okay, so they're trying to send a message like, don't let this happen again.
Yeah, well, I knew better. I screwed up. I didn't read my calendar right. It's not like I was there twirling my mustache like, haha, I want to really screw over the next guy on B shift. Screw that guy. Like, that's not what I was trying to do.
Right.
But anyway, those were my experiences with PIPs. Now, those were unique situations where I had genuinely screwed up. Like, I made a mistake. It affected other people, and I had to do better. And I did better, and things were fine. But that's not always how it goes with a PIP.
No, it's not.
No. So when someone gets a PIP, I mean, is it a wake-up call that you need to just grind harder? Is it a signal that maybe you're getting pushed out? Like, if someone hits a PIP for the first time, what should they be thinking of?
In my experience, a PIP is an invitation to leave, but I have a very specific reason why that is my experience. And again, any advice that I give on social media is not the hard and fast rule, like this is the way it is, these are the facts. It's from my experience, these are the mistakes I made. That's always where my content and my advice is coming from. Like, this happened to me once, don't make the same mistake I did. But obviously I've never been on 10 PIPs, so I don't have a huge data set.
Only 2. I've only been on 2.
And I've only been threatened with 1. I've technically never been on 1.
Okay.
But in my experience, a PIP was an invitation to leave. And I think not everybody comes back from a PIP. I actually think more people don't come back from a PIP.
That's interesting. Why do you have that perspective? Because I'm of a similar mindset, but I have the benefit of every year I serve thousands of clients.
And you have a way bigger
cases.
data set.
It's a pretty big data set. It's still anecdotal evidence. Like I admit it's but thousands of cases every year. Generally when there's a PIP, the ship is sinking. But
the ship is sinking.
What's informing your opinion here?
Well, okay. Do you want to hear about my experience on a PIP?
Yeah.
It's so this was one of my first jobs out of college, and I was a mechanical engineer at a startup. I worked with a lot of older men in manufacturing, in the lab, and a bunch of engineering technicians.
So this is a male-dominated
Absolutely
area. How
male.
old were you at the time?
So I was one of two female engineers. I was probably, let's see, now you're gonna make me do math on camera. Okay, so I was born in 88. This was in 2014.
Were you 26 at the time?
Sure.
It's pretty young.
Pretty young.
It's so being the only kind of person in a place, I mean, really, whether it's racial, national origin, gender, it's very intimidating to look around and say, I'm the only one of me here.
Yeah, and it's isolating because you don't have a sense of camaraderie with other people where you can have a sounding board like, hey, has this ever happened to you?
Plus the age difference.
Yeah, true. I was one of the youngest, and there was one other female engineer who was a total sweetheart. We actually went to the same college.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I did talk to her about some stuff, but so what happened was my boss just would roast me in our one-on-ones. He would challenge my ideas in a way that wasn't trying to help me learn, but it was like trying to make me feel stupid. That's how I felt.
I've had bosses like that. Like it seems like, was he significantly older than you?
Yeah.
I would get that too. It's almost like they have this mindset like, oh, here's the new person. I need to beat them down and make sure they know that I'm the boss and it's my way or the highway. It's very ego-driven leadership.
Yeah, if you're a manager like that, cut that shit out. Nobody likes managers
Why
like
do
that.
people do that? It's
pride, ego, maybe?
Well, it's proven not to be an effective leadership style.
No.
It's consistently, and not just in corporate, like in fire that doesn't work, in military that doesn't work, in just putting together a party, a group of friends, that doesn't work. You know, like any leadership position, no matter the stakes, being the, hey, look out for me, I'm the big boss, that's not an effective leadership style.
No, I don't think people respond well to that. The majority of people do not respond well. So that was happening. I did not feel comfortable with my manager. Also, in parallel, simultaneously, there were these two men that had daughters my age. I think that's an interesting detail, because why would you treat somebody like that when you are bringing a young woman into the world?
Can't imagine where this is going.
Yeah, so I walk by these two men, and they're whispering something, and I was like, oh, what are you guys talking about? And they were like, no, nothing. And I'm like, come on, like, what are you talking about? Oh, boy. And they were like, oh, we were just saying that you look very calipigious today. Do you know what the word calipigious means?
No.
Neither did I.
Did you look it up?
Sounded French. I took it as a compliment at the time. Calipigious, it means you have a fat ass.
Like is voluptuous or bodacious? Calipigious?
Voluptuous to me sounds more like the whole woman is voluptuous, but calipigious is specifically about your behind.
Okay.
I didn't know that, so I was like, oh, okay. Walked away, looked it up. Felt immediately so embarrassed and ashamed.
You looked it up. How did it feel to, in that moment, be like, oh, they were talking about my ass? We're already demonetized. It's fine.
Right. This is not an
ship
ad.
has sailed so hard. So they were looking at your ass, and then what happened?
So I told them, hey, you guys need to knock it off. Don't talk to me like that.
Oh, you went and told them, like, hey, I looked this word up. That's bullshit.
Yeah, that's not okay. So,
wait, how'd they react to that?
They were like, yeah, sorry, that was gross. We're sorry. So I had a mentor at the time, and this thing with my boss was coming from one angle. This thing with these other two guys was coming from another angle. I had another guy in the lab who kept asking me, when I was being careful with the equipment, he was like, oh, are you worried about breaking a nail? And so all this stuff was happening where I did not feel safe. I didn't feel comfortable. So I went out to lunch with my mentor at the time, and I told him all of this, and he said, wow, really sounds like you're in a hostile work environment.
Let's pause real quick. So everything that's happening in this place, already we've got trouble because you're one of only two women. How many people worked there, do you think?
I was the 44th employee.
So we're looking at about 40, 50 people. I'm sure it fluctuates in between there. You're one of only 2 women.
Mm-hmm. No, 2 female engineers. There were other women there, but they were in more like administrative roles.
Okay, so you were in a department where you were outnumbered.
Yep.
And you were one of the youngest, so it's already inherently a little intimidating
Yep.
being the new person.
Yep.
Your boss is aggressive, trying to beat you down. The lab manager sounds kind of condescending.
Absolutely.
And saying, oh, you're going to break a nail. It's not just condescending, but condescending because you are a woman.
Yeah.
And then we've got 2 men with daughters your age talking about yours. That is so insanely. I have a lot of sexual harassment cases where my victims are the same age or younger than the harasser's daughters. And
How
it's like,
sad to enter the workforce and be like given that kind of vibe at work.
well, I feel bad for their kids too. It's like, wait, I can't have my friends around you. Like, you're a perv.
Yeah, really. Pervs.
Oh my God. So you're getting just pressure from all sides.
Yeah.
I would say this is a hostile work environment.
Okay, so
I would.
I thought those 3 words at the time really resonated. I didn't know that those were hot button words for HR, but I emailed HR at the time, and I thought, you know what, HR, human resources, they're here, they have my back. I was wrong, spoiler alert. And so I emailed them and I said, hey, this is what's going on. I feel like I'm in a hostile work environment. And I don't feel like I can do my job to the best of my ability. I feel like these things that are happening are making it difficult for me to do a good job at work. And what happened was, instead of her emailing me back, she called me into her office, and we had only verbal conversations from then on out, which was a mistake.
Why do you think the only verbal was happening?
Because I don't think she wanted to acknowledge in email that I was telling the truth. That's my opinion. Why do you think?
Well, probably, the thing about HR, I get so much flack from HR professionals because they think I'm Mr. like anti-HR. I'm not.
No.
I'm not anti-HR. Just we need to be realistic about what they do and do not do.
Yeah.
Your employer is not paying a Department of Human Resources professionals to help you beat them in a lawsuit.
Of course not.
That's insane.
No, and this was a startup who was trying to get funding, who was trying to get the plane off the ground, and then from their perspective,
they need as little trouble as possible. I've seen this before in new ventures, startups, things like that. HR is just trying to keep the workforce under control because they're trying to get their Series B, Series C funding, take it to the next level. And the last thing they need is, we've got a class action for wages. So that's what HR is going to do. Now, that's not to say don't talk to HR.
No.
You did the right thing sending an email. But going back with everything you know now, would you have worded it differently?
I think I would have actually, I've dreamt about this a lot. I've thought about this a lot. One thought that I've had is maybe I should have emailed those men and my boss and the lab manager and said, hey, it's not okay that you said this to me on this date. And then I would have had a paper trail that those things happened and that I tried to handle it myself first before going to HR. That's what I wish I would have done.
That's interesting. I will tell you, legally, that's not always necessary.
No?
But it sounds like that was important to you, to address it with them directly first.
Yeah, because after what happened with HR, they tried to downplay what happened to me, and I ended up wondering if I had made it up all in my head. So
They made you doubt your own reality.
Yeah.
Is there a word for that?
Psychotic?
Gaslighting.
Gaslighting. Yeah. So anyway, I went into HR's office, and they said, they didn't say, I'm sorry these things are happening. They didn't acknowledge anything. They said, I'm glad you're here in our office because we've wanted to talk to you anyways. Your performance has been lacking and we'd like you to resign in the next 2 weeks. And
this happened how soon after that initial complaint?
A day after.
How long ago was this?
This was 2014-ish.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I wish we knew each other then.
I wish that I don't know. I wish a lot of things.
Well, you're in that position, and I imagine you must have felt like hot on your skin. Like, wait a minute, I came to you for help because I have guys ogling my body in ways that makes me feel unsafe. Like, it's not just rude. This is something that a lot of men in the workplace need to understand. As a sexual harassment attorney, men, imagine you go to an office and there's a group of 20, 30 LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neals, like people significantly taller and bigger and stronger than you. Mm-hmm. And all of them keep looking you up and down and checking you out and telling you how cute your body looks. That's intimidating.
Yeah.
There's a lot of men who go, oh, you need to lighten up. Like, it's a compliment. You should smile more. Like, I would like it if someone checked me out. It's like, yeah, because you're physically safe. It's not that there's an old saying that's maybe a little extreme, but it's a good one. It says, men in the office, you should not say anything to your female coworkers that you wouldn't want a bigger guy than you to say
your
in
wife?
prison.
To you in prison?
Yeah. Well, it's
insane.
an exercise in empathy because, a lot of guys might hear your story and say, what? They thought you were, what's that word?
Calipigis. What a word.
What a word indeed. It's like, oh, they called you calipigis. They think your butt looks good. Like, it's a compliment. I would feel so good if the women in the office checked me out. And it's like, no. Like, imagine now.
A man saying that to you in prison. That's good.
Specifically, a guy bigger than you.
Oh my God.
And the reason is, okay, so there is that threat. Like, this person is bigger and stronger than me. If they really decided to do something to me, they could, and I can't really do much about it. And why do we use the prison example? Because you're fundamentally in a place where the power dynamic is taken away from you.
Ooh.
And I'm not saying every office is a prison. It's not that kind of analogy. It's saying once this person, this bigger, stronger person, crosses a line and hurts you or makes you feel uncomfortable or unsafe, you have to go for help in your place of employment. And if you don't play your cards just right,
you could lose your job.
You could lose your job. You can lose your income. You can lose your health care. Yeah. And that's why that's why saying, oh, you don't want someone in prison to say this to you. It's an empathy exercise because in prison, you don't have a lot of autonomy. You don't have many avenues for help.
Yeah.
So I would like more men in the office to understand that.
Wow.
And I didn't really get that.
That's powerful.
Until I became a sexual harassment advocate.
And you hear the crap that people pull at work.
Well, yeah, and I hear the same excuses in depots all the time. Like, I didn't mean it that way. It was a compliment.
She should feel flattered.
Yeah, it's like you are 6'2", 250 pounds, and you're 44 years old, and you've got a VP title, and people are scared of you. Wow. And then you go to a 120-pound, 22-year-old girl who has no reputation, no power, doesn't make, this is such a vulnerable position. Mm-hmm. And now you're sending these signals like, hey, if you want to work here, you're going to let me graze up against your butt.
That was some Harvey Weinstein shit. Like, if you want this role in this movie, you're going to have to let me sleep with you. It was like,
the stakes,
the same vibes.
The stakes are absurd. It's just like, oh, if you want your full lunch break, like, you're going to come on lunch with me and let me talk sexy to you. Like,
wow.
I've seen cases that were just the most absurd thing.
Wow.
And anyway, it sounds like you experienced something similar. In the moment, how did you feel? I mean, I would imagine you're upset, but did you have other feelings at the time?
Yeah, because I was grinding at this job. It was my first job as an engineer with a master's degree. I had graduated so proud of myself. I was like, I got this great job as an engineer making medical devices in the Bay Area of California. Like, how cool. I'm really proud of myself. And then for them to tell me that, first of all, I had complained about this thing, and then they were telling me my performance was lacking, I immediately was wondering, are the two related? Were they going to tell me about my lacking performance before I had come to them about this claim?
What do you think?
No.
Yeah. Look, it's true that correlation is not causation, but it happens so often. I see it all the time.
Wow.
Where you stick up for yourself and you push back for whatever reason, and suddenly you're the worst employee in the world.
Yeah.
Suddenly customers are complaining about you.
Right.
Oh,
where's the data?
Can we see who complained so we can go back in the account and say, oh no, they wanted to remain anonymous. Right. Well, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
What a coincidence.
So you got hit with this, and it was really shortly after. I will say, not that we can do anything about it now, in your email saying, I can't do my job to my full abilities because of this, I would take that out.
Oh, okay.
I would take that out because I don't want to give them an in to say, well, whether it was justified or not, the fact is your performance did slip. I don't want to give them any room. I could still fight that in court, but I'd rather not give them the room. I would just say, hey, I'm writing to report a hostile work environment. I've been getting inappropriate attention from my male coworkers, specifically on date. They told me that I was
calipigis.
I'm not going to get that word. I'm not going to get that word.
Nobody should know that freaking word.
They made comments about my body on this date. In the lab, they use gendered, sexist insults to denigrate my work. How can the company help me with this problem?
That would have been a better email.
I like that. I don't like, some people think, oh, if I tell them how much it's affecting me emotionally, if I tell them how upset I am, I'll have more of a case because emotional distress. Not necessarily.
So keep it logical, keep it factual.
Keep it logical, factual, because ultimately a lot of these cases are, he said, she said. I said, they said.
Yeah.
So it becomes a battle of credibility at that point. I get a lot of people who say, oh, Ryan, it's at will employment and it's just hearsay. That can't be good evidence. It's like, it's not ideal. I would rather have a paper trail, but if it's your testimony versus theirs, I've had bosses, they get so worked up and crazy in their deposition and angry that they don't look credible. They look crazy.
Oh, God.
So what happened next? You got hit with the PIP. It was unfair. You probably felt attacked.
They actually gave me an ultimatum. They said, you can either put in your resignation, draft up a resignation email, send it to us first for approval, and then send it to the whole
paper trail.
Right, then send it to the whole company, or we'll put you on a PIP. And trust us, you don't want to be on a PIP. And they described to me what that was, and it sounded awful. It was a 6-month PIP, and I said, I don't want to be on a PIP. It honestly sounded like career suicide. That's kind of how they described it to me. And so I started job searching immediately, and I took the route of resigning. And they told me, if you resign, and obviously they told me this verbally, they said, if you resign, we won't contest your unemployment pay, I guess.
And of course they didn't put that in writing, because I imagine they did.
No, I got unemployment.
God. Okay.
But I put in my resignation. I sent an email to the whole company. Hey, everybody, I've loved working here, but I've decided to leave. It's been great working with you. Here's my last day. People were coming up to me and they were saying, oh, where are you moving to? What new job did you get? And I had to say, I don't have a new job yet. And HR told me, do not tell anybody what happened. And I didn't. So I looked like an idiot.
I want everyone listening to know that I'm sorry, because it's 10 years after the fact and I don't know exactly where this was, but I see cases like this all the time, and this is the makings of a significant value case. Like, I don't know all the details of what you're talking about. I'm not giving you legal advice right now. That we can talk after if you want to.
No, I'm good. It's
but
been a while.
This fact pattern, don't listen to anyone saying at will employment. Don't listen to anyone saying, oh, you'll be blacklisted. It's
blacklisted. They used that word too.
Yeah.
They were like, don't sue the company because, you might never be able to get a job in this industry again. It was seriously some Harvey Weinstein crap.
And I hate that, because a lot of these cases, when we resolve them, they do resolve confidentiality. I mean, look, if you file something in court, it's public record. But
Yep.
I have never, thousands of clients, I've never had a client come to me and say, I can't get a job because I press my rights.
So that's not a thing, blacklisting in the industry?
So here, because everyone has a story like, oh, my uncle or my friend got blacklisted and couldn't get a job. I do want to caution you that a lot of times the most emotional part of our story is what we ascribe as the cause of our unhappiness. So you might have had a dispute at work and you might think, oh, they blacklisted me because it was bad, like HR yelled at me. It's like, maybe they're talking bad about you, but it's not like employers have this central blacklist registry. I mean, I hire people all the time. I don't go to blacklist.com and like, oh, who's blacklisted today? Who sued their employer?
Right.
If I wanted to, I could do a background check and find court records and see who sued an employer in the past. But think about this. I mean, do you really want to work for a place that doesn't hire you because you speak up when you aren't paid properly?
Probably not.
You want to work for a place that doesn't hire you because you didn't tolerate racist comments from your manager? No. The only reason they care about that is because they want to steal your wages or make racist comments to you and get away with it.
True.
I mean, that's the way HR treated you is so unfair in that situation.
Bad things happened to
it
that
sounds like
HR
they really
woman.
Bullied you.
They really did. And bad things happened to that HR person afterwards, and I like to think it was karma.
What happened?
We don't need to get into it.
Hit by a bus?
No.
Regina George?
some permanent health-related issues. But,
God, no. Okay. Yikes.
But, so I ended up leaving that company and got a new job a couple months later, and it was way better. So it was a blessing that I left because, they went public and now their stock is almost at zero. So the karma was felt around the world.
Oh, wow.
I got my justice in the end. So I sleep good at night now. But so I learned, HR is not your friend, which finance isn't your friend either. Nobody at your company is your friend. It's business, not personal. So definitely learned that. But also, I think the PIP situation, sometimes I wonder, like, what would it have been like if I would have taken the PIP and worked among those people for another 6 months, grinding even harder. I mean, I was working 80-hour weeks. This was a startup. We worked 7 days a week on holidays, Christmas. Yeah. So
how was the pay at this place?
So with a master's degree in biomedical engineering in 2014, I was getting paid $68,000 a year in the Bay Area.
In the Bay Area.
Yeah, it was terrible pay. I think that was in part because I didn't negotiate well for myself, but also like who pays somebody that low?
Was there an opportunity to negotiate when you got up there?
Here's what happened. So they hired me on initially as a contractor, and they were paying me hourly. I forget what it was, but I was still looking for a full-time job. And eventually, 3 months in, I got a full-time offer to be a medical device salesperson. And the sales position offered me $68,000 a year plus commission.
You need an engineering degree to sell these things?
Not necessarily,
okay.
no. But I went to the startup that I work for as a contractor, and I said, hey, I'm going to put in my 2 weeks. I got a full-time position, which you knew I was looking for. And they said, oh, well, we want to make you a full-time offer. How much is the other company offering? And I told them the amount, which was a huge mistake. So now this is why I coach people on negotiation, because that's how not to do it. So I said, they offered me $68,000. And this company said, well, we'll give you $68,500 a year. And I said, done.
What? Hold on.
I was an idiot back then.
What does that come out to? Like $48 a month extra after tax, maybe $30 a month?
I was so stupid back then. This is why I teach people how not to do it, because I made every mistake in the book.
You were smarter at 26 than I was at 30, so don't beat yourself up too bad.
I don't anymore. Yeah. I used to, but then I thought, you know what? Let me just start making videos on social media and teach people all the mistakes that I made, because I don't want anybody to make those mistakes.
I think that makes you a better teacher.
I think so too.
Learning the hard way sucks, but you learn it good.
Yeah, you do. I'm never going to make that same mistake twice.
What happened? So you took their counter offer at I got to be honest, 68.5, that's almost a middle finger.
Didn't know it at the time. Didn't really know what I was worth. I didn't know to look on Glassdoor or salary.com or the Bureau of Labor Statistics for salary data. I didn't know that at the time.
Salary Transparent Street with Hannah Williams, they have a database too.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you've seen her stuff. She goes around like, what do you do? How much do you make?
Yes.
With a mic, and she captures all of that information, and she's building a database.
Oh, cool. I'll
so
check
you
it
can
out.
search by locality too. So instead of going on like Indeed or something and going, oh, the median salary for an attorney is like $95,000 a year, you can actually look and say, well, what is it in Tulsa? What is it in San Diego? What is it in Houston? Yeah.
Smart. Yeah. Should have done that.
Well, you took the counter.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
They signed me on. They said, welcome to the company. You're a full-time employee now. Congratulations. And I didn't know what any of this stuff meant. They gave me stock that I had to buy for 14 cents a share. And they eventually went public, and it was worth $13,000 at one point. Now it's worth almost zero because their stock tanked. But it was just a lot of learning lessons, and I just wish there was a class in college that taught this kind of stuff. So I'm glad that I have a podcast, you have a podcast, and we talk about these things because people need to know. Yeah,
well, let's talk about this more. I wasn't planning on this, but it's a really important topic. So when you go find another job and you get an offer, it's smart, I think, to go to your employer and say, hey, I got an offer for somewhere else. If they counter, should you take that offer?
You can evaluate different things. What I should have evaluated was, what's the commission at this sales job? How much could I potentially be making?
Always look at that commission and bonus structure.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they'll see a higher base rate and jump on it and realize they actually got capped.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that sales job was in Santa Cruz, California, which is not a medical device hub. Silicon Valley is. Sunnyvale, Mountain View, they have a lot more medical device companies.
You had a different sales area that was a less active market?
Yeah.
Oh, you got to look for that.
There's so many things you have to evaluate. And so sometimes it's the lesser of two evils or the greater of two goods. There's no obvious right answer, which one to choose if you have two offers on the table.
You know what? I'm glad you bring that up, because one thing people struggle with in their careers is they're so afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You can bounce back from almost anything.
Yeah, look at me. I've made every mistake, and look at me now.
Oh my God. I say this with love, Alli. You done fucked up a lot. I mean,
trust me, I know.
Taking the counter at $500 more a year. Oh my God. If this was an episode of Shark Tank, I think Mark Cuban would fall out of his chair.
Yeah, Mr. Wonderful.
What are you doing?
You'd be like, get out.
But it speaks to a lot of broader lessons. If you're you should be applying to jobs even if you're happy.
Yeah. Stay open to opportunities.
Well, yeah. What is your opinion? You agreed with me. Why do you think that is?
So I think that, there's on LinkedIn, you can say you're open to work for recruiters only. I think everybody should have that turned on at all times, even if you are happily employed, because recruiters can reach out to you and they can say, hey, come work for our company. And you can interview just for fun and see what you're worth, because you're going to get paid. You're only worth what somebody's willing to pay for you.
Yeah.
Same with real estate. Your house is only worth what somebody's going to buy it for. So I think it's interesting to stay open to opportunities, because you never know what's out there, and you never know if you are truly in a good spot getting paid well until somebody else comes along, doubles your pay, and it's even a better place to work.
And I want to be clear, that can happen to people. You know, if you just keep the door open, if you put yourself out there once in a while, if you go to networking events, if you interact with people in your industry, you never know what doors are going to open. I got to tell you, it's 2024. Back in 2017, 2018, 2019, I never thought that I would be Attorney Ryan or doing the labor law stuff. I was hoping to just get a job at a firm somewhere and make a good living.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how much better stuff is out there.
Yeah.
Just by not being afraid to stray outside the beaten path a little bit.
Yeah.
So a lot of people should do this.
Yeah, take some risks. Save some money in case you get laid off. But have a cushion so that you can take some risks in your life, because there's some incredible opportunities out there.
I like that. Now, recruiters, can you trust them?
I mean, in what way? To have your back?
Well, there's a few things with recruiters that come up. I mean, first of all, ultimately, a recruiting job is a sales job. They're actually a two-sided salesperson. They're selling you on roles, and then they're selling you back to the companies.
Yeah, and they're going to make money. They're not just going to have your back because they're a good person.
Oh, they're not your bestie?
No. They're making money. It's a business.
Yeah.
And oftentimes these external recruiters, they want to help you get a higher salary because they get paid a portion of your salary, a percentage of your salary if you're hired by a company. So sometimes it works out in your favor. But I mean, can you trust a recruiter? I think it's just up to you to have good communication and be transparent with what you're looking for and what you're okay with and what you're not okay with, and then let the opportunities come your way and you can say yes or no to them.
What are some green flags? Let's start positive. Green flags in a recruiter.
You mean as an employee working with a recruiter?
Yeah.
Or communicating with a recruiter? I've had a recruiter, I sent them my resume, and it was an external recruiter. They didn't work for the company I was applying to, but they told me that I had a spelling mistake on my resume. And they said, why don't you fix this real quick before I send it off to the company?
Being proactive and actually reading the resume you send them, not just churning it.
Yep, loved that. Yeah, love her. I still stay in contact with her.
Very cool.
So if somebody has your back in that way, I loved that. Also,
constructive criticism.
Yeah.
It sounds like because some people might say, oh, I feel attacked, they don't like me. And it's like, look, sometimes that might be it, but other times it sounds like they're trying to help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a green flag.
Yeah, I agree.
Friends don't let friends walk out of the restaurant with ketchup on their shirt.
Exactly. You know if you have toilet paper on your shoe, somebody's going to have your back.
I might leave the toilet paper. That's kind of funny. But ketchup, I'll help you out.
It's kind of funny. If you're on camera, get that shit out of there. But yeah, it is kind of, if you're on a date, maybe it's kind of funny. But other green flags for recruiters, I would say, I love it when a candidate asks in a phone screen, what's your budget for the role? And the recruiter's honest. Because not everybody is an expert negotiator. It's really hard to negotiate live over the phone with somebody or on a Zoom call. So I love it when I think it's a green flag when a recruiter gives you the range for the role. I love that. What else? I like
constructive feedback, transparency. These are things we're looking for.
Yeah. What other green flags? Yeah, I'd say those are probably the two most major ones.
All right. Now here's the fun part. Red flags.
Red flags in a recruiter. Let's see. In what phase of the interview process?
Let's start from the very beginning. Them maybe a cold email from a recruiter on LinkedIn.
I mean, you can tell when somebody's sending you an email that is a mass email they've sent to a bunch of people. I don't like that.
I don't like that either. I get that a lot too, for different things, but it's always so funny to me. I get so many unsolicited, so-and-so firm is hiring a labor and employment attorney for a competitive salary, prestigious firm. And it's like, you just sent this to everybody.
Yeah.
Because I'm unemployable. Are you kidding me? I know too much about my rights. I would be a problem. I would be the worst employee. If something happens and I lose my business, don't hire me. I'm too sassy and I know my rights. I'm a nightmare. So.
Yeah. And the brand deals do this too. I don't know if you get these messages that are like from sunglass companies that are like, I love your TikTok account. Will you do an ad for us? And I'm like, what? How do you think that your brand would resonate with my audience about career tips? So,
well, they're not even going to pay you. They're just going to send you some
free
cheap,
glasses.
AliExpress glasses.
I've definitely said yes to a couple of those. I won't lie.
Well, you got to learn. That's fine. So many people, they're afraid to, first of all, they're afraid to make mistakes because they think the mistake is fatal.
Yeah.
A lot of people, it breaks my heart when I see this, especially when people hit the 20, 30 year mark at a company. They're so afraid to make a mistake because the finish line is right there.
Retirement?
My retirement's going to vest.
Pension.
My pension is coming. I just need one more year. Got to keep my head down. My health benefits. Like, it's really scary for people. And so understandably afraid to make a mistake, afraid to step out of line.
Yeah.
I mean, getting a PIP when you're on year 29 and
That's
you're
scary.
waiting on year 30 for your retirement, that's terrifying.
I would grind so hard. I'd be working 24 hours a day if somebody put me on a PIP and I was a year away from retirement.
Well, and the irony is it may have nothing to do with how hard you're working.
Yeah, you're right. And I've even made videos about it's not about how hard you work. It's about like the impact you're making and honestly your likability at the company. Likability
is, it sucks because it's not fair.
No, and it's not measurable either.
Because how do you measure it?
Yeah.
You know, and likability is one of those things where people say, well, I don't want to be fake. What's your advice to someone who says, I don't want to fake a persona or not be my authentic self at work?
I think that we all have to put on a little bit of a facade when we go to work because in my personal life, I'm not very professional. I swear a lot. I make dirty jokes sometimes.
You gave me a noogie when you walked in here. I found that highly unprofessional.
No, I did not.
She bullied me, folks. She bullied me the minute she walked in the studio.
You said you wouldn't tell anybody I did that.
Yeah, she said, sup, dork, and then noogie. I cried. I'm kidding.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, I don't know. It's tricky sometimes, but...
Well, putting on that mask, I mean, let's be real. All life, we have to wear masks.
Yeah.
You can be your authentic self, but you should...
Read the room.
Read the room.
Read the room. Know who your audience is. Know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Know what they would want to hear and maybe tailor your communication so it's more easily digestible for somebody.
I think so. And reading the culture is good. Like, look, I'm a very different I have one living grandparent left. She's 96 years old.
Hi, Grandma.
I know. I love her. We're very close. I'm very blessed to be close to her. But I'm a very different Ryan around my 96-year-old grandmother than I am around my 30-something-year-old bros, like when we go paintballing.
Sure.
I'm a very different person paintballing with the boys than I am having a nice tea with my grandmother. Now, I'm still me in both. I'm not being fake around my grandma. I'm being respectful.
Yeah.
And I love her, and I care about her, and I know there's some things she doesn't want to hear me say. She doesn't want to hear me say the word fuck. She doesn't want to hear me rap the lyrics to my favorite Limp Bizkit song. Like, she doesn't want to hear my liked songs on Spotify. And I'm still me. I can still joke with my grandma and be loving.
I think there's, like, for you, there is the umbrella of Ryan. There's professional attorney Ryan. There's social media Ryan. There's podcast Ryan. There's paintball Ryan. There's tea with grandma Ryan. And we can put on these different hats when we're in different environments. What's interesting is when those environments cross. What if your grandma wanted to go paintballing with you and listen to your Spotify on the way there? Then what do you do? Well,
Irene was in her teens during World War II. I like to think she knows a few things.
She'd probably kick your ass at paintball.
When grandma gets some PTSD on the battlefield, she's got, Grandma, that's a real grenade. She has a real grenade. Where'd you get that?
Irene, put it down.
Shut up.
Yeah.
So what about you? I mean, do you find that you have to be a different person in different settings also?
I do, but I always make sure that I'm staying true to myself and I know what my core values are. Like, if you know me, I really value honesty and transparency. I hate lying. I
don't think I know anyone who enjoys it. Well, when it's happening to you,
you're a lawyer. Of course you know people who like to lie, don't you?
Yeah.
Maybe not, but so I have my core values, so that I really like to hold true to those no matter what setting I'm in, but I know the kind of communication that I need to have with different types of people. Like, I'm going to talk to somebody when I'm networking, at a convention in Las Vegas differently than when I'm out partying, like you're talking about with paintballing versus tea.
That's interesting. And by the way, going out to a casual party, in my opinion, is equally good networking, if not better.
Depends what you're like when you're drunk.
It depends on what you're like. It depends on a lot of things. But, the truth is, when we talk about office politics, it's not, who's the most reliable, who does the best work. A lot of times, the people who don't get pips, the people where it seems the rules don't apply to them, the people who get offered promotions and perks first.
It's the coolest.
It's just who's cool to hang out with.
Who's got the best vibe? Who can be like chill in a meeting and support each other's ideas? Yeah, it's not really measurable.
What is the line, though? I mean, that's what we're trying to figure out. Like, what's the line between being adaptable and being, I guess, I want to say politically savvy? There's office politics, and you have to know how to walk that line, and being your authentic self. Where's the line? How do you know you're doing the right thing?
I think so, and I learned this from Chris Voss, who wrote the book Never Split the Difference. He's an ex-FBI hostage negotiator. So he taught me that if you can create a win-win situation and you can know what the other party wants, what their desires are, what their goals are, and you can help them reach their goals while you are still winning, whatever that looks like for you, that's the best way to move up at a company.
I think that's good advice. Now, a common problem with that I see when you do advice sessions for people, right? One-on-one career advice. I do that too, but we have different outcomes. Yours, I think you're trying to help them thrive where they are. Me, they come to me when either negotiations failed or it's about to fail.
Yep.
So we might see people at different points in the journey.
Yes.
But a problem I see a lot is a lot of employees get very focused on what's good for the company.
Really?
And because of that, they end up in conflict with a manager. So I've seen employees say, this is a bad idea. I know it's a bad idea. We're going to lose money. We're going to embarrass ourselves. So I told management it was a bad idea. And now I'm being iced out of things.
So do you think they should have their managers back, not the company's back?
I think a lot of employees need to recognize what dogs are in what fight and what matters. Because the truth is, you might say, I want to look out for my employer and be the best employee and make sure that we're standing up for what I know makes money. But ultimately, the faceless entity that is the company that employs you has a lot less involvement in your daily life than your manager does.
Yeah.
So, hot take, and I want your raw reaction here.
Okay.
I think a lot of times for most employees, this is general advice, every situation's different. If you have to choose between, do I take the company side or I take management side? If management's about to make a dumb decision, but they're very excited about it, do I fight back against that dumb decision to protect the company?
Nah.
Let management dig their grave and cheer them on along the way. Because what's going to happen is you could be wrong, by the way.
You could be wrong.
You could feel strongly and be wrong. It could be fine.
True.
But let's say that bad idea blows up. Guess whose heads roll? The guy who spearheaded it, management.
Yeah. And what are you going to say? I told you so? Nobody likes to hear I told you so.
No, there's none of that.
No.
So look, AT&T doesn't give a flying fuck about your opinion about how you should market to their local region. But your manager sure cares a lot.
Yeah.
And if you offend their ego by shooting down their idea, oh my God, that is going to hurt your career way worse than AT&T losing a couple of sales points in a region, which is your manager's fault anyway.
Yeah, it's almost as if you're in a whitewater rafting trip and you're trying to paddle upstream while everybody's paddling the other direction. Go with the flow. If you got some hesitations about where the thing is going, I don't know if I would say something. I mean, people ask me this all the time, like, hey, I have this thing that I want to bring up to my manager. I think that the company's doing something wrong, and I want to fix it. And I'm like, first of all, do you have the ability to fix it?
That is a fantastic question to ask. Can you, in your role, fix it? Now,
most likely it's no.
Most likely it's no. Now, a lot of people think, well, we always want to find a way because people are resilient. They say, yes, it is. I can bring my concerns to management. It's like, you're going to put yourself on a hit list somewhere.
Yeah.
Because, management doesn't care.
No, and they might see it as you complaining.
They might see it as a threat to their authority.
Yes, they might.
People in those management positions, they don't want to hear that anyone is not 100% invested in their ideas.
Yeah, I think make your manager look good. If your manager's got a really dumb idea, try this. Just cheer them on and go, yeah, buddy, let's do it.
I think, that's not going to be popular advice because, I know a big part of my message is standing up for yourself. knowing when to say enough is enough.
Well, if you have data to back up your feelings, that is probably more powerful than if it's just emotion that you're going off of. Because you probably have to look at data. When people are going against something their manager wants, if you have data to back it up, your manager might listen to you.
You've got, and you got to make it their idea to an extent. You know,
this is marriage advice too.
This is just advice for, honestly, I hope that every fan of this show reads Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power.
Love that.
Every employee should read it.
Is that really banned in prison?
I don't know. I've heard that it is.
I've heard that too.
I've heard that it is. If you're going to ban that, you should ban How to Win Friends and Influence People. Because honestly, although 48 Laws of Power has this reputation for being a little darker and more manipulative, it is very similar to How to Win Friends and Influence People. You could sum up 48 Laws of Power as, hey, know what battles are worth fighting, know when to speak up and when to shut up, and how to make people feel comfortable around you.
Yeah.
Because honestly, power, manipulation, office politics, it's a lot simpler than a lot of people think it is.
Yeah.
I always tell people, as a baseline, just be present and be pleasant.
I like that.
If there's an event, if there's a congregation of people or something, be there. Be the person don't be the person who's like, oh, I don't do that, because then you're marking yourself as an outsider.
True.
So it does suck. You're going to have to bite the bullet, go to some coffees or some lunch and learns you don't want to go. And when you're there, you don't have to be a rock star. You don't have to be the center of attention. You just be pleasant.
Yeah.
And a lot of times pleasant means just nod politely when the manager says something.
And it's sometimes hard for people when they don't feel like agreeing or they don't feel like being pleasant. It's hard to shut their mouths and just nod along, even when they're disagreeing.
Why do you think that is? It seems to go deeply against, especially here in the United States, where we have such a strong individualistic culture here.
And freedom of speech.
We really, Americans disagree on a lot, but I think one thing we really care about is that your voice matters, and the idea that even if it's uncomfortable, you should speak up for what you believe in. I think that's a shared American value.
But at work?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Your values aren't a constant for all situations. I value initiative. I think taking initiative is good. I think that it's better to make a mistake with action than with inaction. But there are situations where it is not my place to lead, and that's okay. And I can take a step back and say, taking initiative is a core value of mine, but in this situation, it's not my place to do that.
Did you learn that because you made a mistake taking initiative where you shouldn't have?
Oh, many times. Many times. The thing, I'm very much a trigger puller. I'm very much a
button pusher.
I am very much a jump and build the parachute on your way down. We have plenty of time.
I am too. I'm like, say yes, even if you don't know how to do it. You'll figure it out.
And I've made mistakes that way, but really more in relationships also. There's a time when it's, hey, this is the other person's time to lead, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, all that to say, you have your core values, but figuring out when is your time to speak out against your manager or your employer.
Yeah. I'd say be careful if you're going to speak out against your manager.
What are some hills that are, well, let's start with the easy one. What are some hills that are just not worth dying on at work? No matter how much it pains you, you need to just swallow it. It's not worth it.
Oh God, I don't even know. What hills are not worth dying on? I don't know.
I would say systems and processes. If management comes in and says, hey, we're going to be putting the new cover sheets on our TPS reports, and you know this is a waste of time. No one reads those TPS reports. No one reads the cover sheets. The company's going to waste a bunch of money in printer and ink. Shut up. No one asked you. It's not your company. It's not your company. It doesn't affect you. Are there to just get paid, do your job. So it's my opinion that if it's a system or a process issue, if they sincerely ask your opinion and you have some expertise that is non-threatening, add it. Say,
and
hey,
if they say, do you want to rewrite the process?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, like, let's use the stupid TPS report example. If I thought, I think that's a bad idea, and boss sincerely asked, Ryan, what do you think about this? Great idea, boss. I think this is cool. I'm excited to see how it works. No, really, what do you think? Well, that's a good manager.
That is a good manager.
Well, I'm a little concerned about printing costs. It's an extra sheet of paper on all these reports we do. How are we going to cover printing costs? Maybe I would say that. And then manager goes, well, I haven't thought about that. Or they say, oh, it'll be fine. Yes, manager, you're very smart. It'll probably be fine.
I like that.
Yeah. And the reason I say that's a low stakes thing is because it's not your company, it's not your money. You're just there to get paid. And the more management sees you as easygoing and enthusiastic about ideas, the better you're going to do.
I agree. And sometimes, sometimes you have to just say, like, even if you don't think the cover sheets should go on the TPS reports, you just got to go, okay, no problem, boss. Like, what's it? Unless it literally pains you to make these TPS reports, like, what's the big deal? Yeah.
That's the other thing. Like, if you're working in an office and you make, 85, 90, 100K a year even, what do you gain by telling boss, hey, I think it's really inefficient to do this process your way?
Yeah, you're adding friction, and your boss, if you are doing this repeatedly, your boss is going to stop, like, I don't know, if you consistently add friction where your boss is trying to get you to do something, he's going to either stop asking you for stuff, and you're going to feel like, oh, my boss isn't asking me to do anything, but that's not a good sign, I don't think.
Yeah, it just recognize where the stakes are and where they aren't. Now, there are times where it is time to stand your ground. And I think you shared a story earlier in this podcast where it is time to stand your ground.
Which one?
Well, in my opinion, I have a case right now where my client went on a lunch meeting with her manager and he said the N-word a bunch. Hard R.
Really?
Yeah, he was a person of color and he thought that he had a pass to speak that way to her.
Whoa.
Now, I want to be clear, with race discrimination cases, it makes no difference if the offending party is of the same race or is also of a historically marginalized group. The boss was, I can't say too many more details, but basically the boss seemed to think that because he too was a person of color, he could speak that way. And my client was like, that's horrifying. This is a language historically associated with exceptional violence.
Yeah. And
we don't say this in my home, and I don't want to hear it at work.
Wow. Did she say that to them?
Yeah. That is a time to stand your ground.
Yeah.
Sexual harassment. Time to stand your ground.
Yeah. We're talking about illegal stuff.
Yeah. When that line gets crossed, then it's time to push back and stand your ground.
So how can people know what is legal at work and what is illegal at work?
Sometimes it's impossible. I mean, I have a book coming out that's going to help a lot with that.
Cool.
Working title is #BlockYourBoss, your guide to your rights at work.
I love that.
Oh, thank you. It's a working title. It might change. I haven't signed an NDA. I'm surprised. But, that's what we're working on, and it'll help. But the thing is, you don't have to be a legal expert. Mm-hmm. Your moral compass, maybe 9 times or 8 times out of 10, maybe 8 times out of 10 to be conservative, is a sign that something illegal may be happening.
And what's your opinion about using ChatGPT to do a pulse check on if something's illegal or not? If somebody is... People ask me all the time legal questions. I send them to you. I'm like, I'm not a lawyer. Don't ask me. Can somebody ask ChatGPT, like, hey, this happened to me at work. Is that illegal?
I wouldn't.
No?
I wouldn't, no. ChatGPT is a horrendously bad lawyer. Because it just parrots stuff it finds online. It makes up authorities that aren't real. People call it hallucinations. They call it because what it does is it mirrors what legal writing looks like without actually meaning anything. So my concern is someone says, and also you're going to get different outcomes depending on how you word your question.
You're right.
You could say, is sexual harassment a hostile work environment? And it says yes. And then you go, oh, I have a case. And you go, wait a minute, we haven't established that you were sexually harassed, because that's a legal criteria as well. We haven't established that the harassment caused a hostile work environment. So you're asking this machine with no legal training to just regurgitate something that looks like legal research, and you've already begged the question on 2 parts.
Yeah.
So you're going to get fucked up data. I would talk to an employment lawyer.
And I've talked to employment lawyers before, and sometimes they'll give you like a free consultation.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you guys do that.
Some do, some don't. My office, our consultations are free.
Love that.
But there is a difference. So if you come to us and everyone does the free case evaluation first. And we might say, look, we don't really see it's either out of our jurisdiction or we don't see anything illegal.
Yep.
What happened to you was wrong. It was messed up, but it wasn't actually illegal.
Yeah. I recently got laid off last year, and I got severance, and this weird thing happened where they let me go, and then they said, oh no, you're still employed, and then they let me go again.
That's weird.
It was weird. And then they gave me severance. But I went to an employment lawyer because I said, is any of this illegal? And they said, well, have you gotten the money? And I said, not yet. And they said, if you don't get the money, you might have a case. But if you get the money, they didn't do anything wrong.
Did you already sign yeah, at that point you were toast, because the only option there, because there's already an exchange of money for waiving your rights, The only way you can come back after you've signed the severance is if the claim is not covered by the severance or if they don't pay you. Because now it's a breach of contract. And because the whole deal was you waive your right to sue them and they give you money. So if the time period lapses and they didn't pay you, then you're right back where you started. Mm-hmm. But
I felt like such a sellout. That was the first time I had ever gotten severance, because when you're being asked to waive your rights as a human being in exchange for money, I mean, it feels like a bribe.
A lot of people find it offensive.
Yeah, I found it offensive. I signed anyways because I needed the money.
Well,
but
most contracts you sign, you're giving up your right to do one thing in exchange for something else.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important, I think, to talk to an employment lawyer for every severance, because you want to know you're getting a fair dollar amount.
Yep.
And you want to make sure you're comfortable waiving those claims. I always tell people, don't waive $1 million sexual harassment lawsuit for a $5,000 severance.
Really?
Are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
Well, we get beaten to our head all the time. You know, you're going to get blacklisted. It's at will. They can do whatever you want. They can't. I'm so sorry that you had that experience, by the way.
Which experience? The layoff? The severance
The
one?
layoff, the sexual harassment. I mean, honestly, Alli, it sounds like you've had at minimum a 10-year stretch of career where you definitely encountered a lot of dead ends, roadblocks,
obstacles, challenges.
Roads. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wonder, I mean, I used to wonder, like, am I unique? Does everybody struggle this much in their career? And I'm learning that absolutely people struggle this much in their career.
What about the people who look really successful?
They're not always so successful.
What? Things aren't what they appear?
Not always. Hell no. But I mean, I'm glad like people like us are sharing things out loud on social media, because a lot of people come to me and they say, I didn't know that was not unique to me. I didn't know that happened to you too. Like, that happened to me as well. Thank you for sharing your story.
I think it's important people know, especially people who look successful online. I mean, you're huge. You've got like 500,000 followers across your platforms. You've got a show. You've got brand deals. Like, you're very well dressed. You look like a winner. And the problem with that is people see and think, oh, she's a winner. She's always been a winner. And she's a winner because she never loses.
Oh, I've been a loser many, many times. You know, I was a loser yesterday.
What happened yesterday?
Just like, no, the thing with the hotel, like just screwing, like a miscommunication and losing out on a couple $100.
Missing out on a free room.
We were also losers yesterday too, because we found out yesterday that a startup we invested $25,000 in is shutting their doors.
You shared that on your story, and I wanted to bring that up. What the hell happened? That is a massive chunk of money to lose.
Yeah, we bought 5% stake in a startup that made like CBD extractions for pharmaceuticals, and they needed to get an organic certification. They needed to get FDA approval for what they were doing. They needed to like have their manufacturing process certified, and they weren't able to do any of those
What went
three
wrong?
things.
Well, the FDA approval, that can take 10, 15 years, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what went wrong. They're having a shareholder meeting like April 30th, so we'll find out, but money down the drain.
How
So
do you
we were
feel
losers.
about
Yes.
It's raw. I mean, do you feel like you ruined your life?
No, of course not. No, I have a beautiful life. No, when we wrote the check for the $25,000 a couple years ago, I said goodbye to that money, and I said, if I never see this again, that's okay. That's what you need to do when you invest.
That's a good position to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very lucky that I had that money.
Yeah.
I think part of that came from stock, that I worked for a company and they were publicly traded. So I was very lucky to be in that position to be able to invest.
Is it a waste? Is that money just gone and you now have this giant financial scar from which you'll never recover?
No.
Why not?
We didn't like sell our home to do this. We didn't like pan out our life savings and write this check. It was extra money that we had had for a rainy day, or we could invest and triple our money. And we chose to invest and take a risk. My husband and I take a lot of risks. Like, for example, we got married 8 weeks after we met. Huge risk. Also, we bought our $1 million house in Vegas because we met a couple at dinner and they showed us their Zillow listing of their house for sale, and we put an offer on it the next day and moved in.
Are you an impulse junkie? It sounds like you have an addiction to impulse decisions.
Maybe.
Oh my God.
Nobody's ever put it that way before. Do I have an addiction?
Well, how long have you been married now?
7 years.
Oh my gosh. So from 8 weeks to 7 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I met Rico. He seems cool. I like him.
He's all right.
Exactly.
No, he's the best.
Buying the house. Well, the reason I bring that, not to beat you over the head with a very recent L that you took, but I think the point is you can learn from things like that.
Sure.
And I understand that sounds really privileged, because for a lot of listeners, that's an obscene
Amount of money.
unattainable amount of money.
That's
and
a life-changing amount of money.
Getting 25K, especially in this economy, especially if you're truly self-made, like you don't have family money, you worked your way through high school and got a job and you're grinding on your own. It's a devastating blow to lose money like that.
And I could really use 20 grand right now. 20
Yeah.
grand.
Oh, yeah. If you have some to spare, hit me up too. But the point is, I hope you learned from that. You learned what went wrong with that company and what can you do different.
Yeah, a little bit, maybe a little bit more due diligence on our part could have told us that it wasn't the right company to invest in. But I honestly think we did pretty good due diligence. We invested with 2 other people that are 3 times our age that... actually, no, they're probably listening to this, twice our age. But they had a lot more experience. We trusted them, and, not to put them at fault at all, but I think that I don't know if there's much more we could have done. It was just a bad deal.
You make the best decision you can with the information you have at the time.
Sure. That's
and the processing power you have at the time.
Yeah.
That's why that's helped me a lot, because I've made so many mistakes, really embarrassing mistakes too. Mistakes that have cost me a lot of money. Oh my God, I made some very expensive business mistakes last year. But I have to look back and say, look, I wasn't reckless. I made the best decision I had with the information I had at the time. Now I have more information now.
Yeah.
That's experience.
Yep.
Experience is just knowledge gained 5 minutes after you needed it.
Yeah.
And you serve nothing by being bitter. So if you take a bad job, take a bad deal at your job, react to a PIP poorly, send an email you regret, you just got to learn from it and move on.
And don't make the same mistakes twice. Like I think I told you the first time we talked on the phone, I learned the hard way not to sit down on an escalator.
Who needed to teach you that? That common sense.
The escalator definitely taught me that. It ate me at the bottom.
It's basically a giant chainsaw.
Yeah. I was like 3. Like, shame on my mom. She's probably listening to this too.
Did the fire department have to come break you loose?
No, I was like 3 years old. No, it like ate my dress and cut me up really badly. But yeah, like I would never sit down on an escalator again.
Yeah, don't do that.
Anybody listening, don't sit down on an escalator.
Against your boss for low stakes issues that don't matter.
No.
But here's another issue that comes up. Because I think we in America specifically really value our individualism and value this sense of independence. Like if I see something and I really disagree with it, I'm going to speak up and consequences be damned. I mean, there's a part of that that's noble. But I think we see limits to that in corporate America. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Google.
Yeah. Is it the 21st?
Yeah.
All right. So it's the 21st. So it's the 21st of 2024. So just last week, 28 Google employees were fired in one fell swoop because they staged a series of protests against Google. And specifically, they were protesting the Nimbus project. And I didn't know much about this.
I read about it last night.
Okay, do you want to take the reins on what this is?
Well, it sounds like Google is investing at least $1 billion to help Israel with technology to fight this war that they're in.
Yeah, so there's been some conflicting, obviously. And quick, I want to address this issue real quick. Every side has their agenda. So when you hear something from news media or Amazon or Google, you need to remember that they are protecting their interests. So one thing I saw on the news that really pissed me off because it was so bad faith, it was Fox. Of course it's Fox. Who else would it be? They brought on a labor expert to talk about this. And instead of saying, hey, was this illegal? What are employees' rights? The anchor goes, would you hire any of these employees who got fired for disrupting Google and destroying their property?
What language? What inflammatory language?
Well, the reason where he was coming from is that's what Google claims happened. Google says that they, occupied offices, and they did. They occupied C-level executives' offices. They did do that. They did trespass.
And they were peaceful, right?
Well, Google says no.
Oh, and the employees say they were peaceful.
Yeah, so the employees say we were peaceful. Yes, we were disruptive to get our message across, but not defacing property. No one destroyed anything. And Google's saying, no, you destroyed stuff and you trespassed. So
interesting.
That's what I want to make clear as we're talking about this. There's two sides. Both sides have their agenda. Of course, the employees are going to say we didn't destroy anything. And of course, Google is going to say, oh my God, you threw Molotov cocktails and you burned down our headquarters. And, they're always going to say that.
Yeah.
And too often, and that's what that Fox News host did, they took what the company said as gospel. And as a labor lawyer who fights corporations all the time, spoiler alert, corporations lie when it's in their interest to do so.
What?
So anyway, I want to talk about this more with you specifically.
Yeah.
So we have the 28 employees. They were upset about the Nimbus program, which was a partnership between Google and Amazon to provide technological services to Israel.
Yep.
Now, the company claims that it's primarily civilian application, but the employees in the project say, no, there's military application. There's military application that's been going on for years. And their concern, as far as I understand it, having listened to their interviews, is that Google's technology was being used by Israel to possibly harm Palestinian civilians, non-combatants. They're saying you're using this tech to hurt people who don't deserve it. Something to that effect.
Okay.
And very angry reactions from all sides on this, because the protesters, their opinion is, we don't want our labor to contribute to violence against innocent people. We don't want our labor to contribute to genocide. We don't want our labor to contribute to war, which those are very powerful values that someone is expressing.
Yeah.
There's really, do you think there's even a middle ground there? I cannot see how there could be, but maybe you see it differently.
I mean, my question when I was hearing about this and I was doing some research was, first of all, did the employees know that this was the project they were going to be working on when they were first hired? Or was this a complete surprise to them? Did they get hired as a software engineer for a search engine, and then suddenly they find themselves making technology for war?
We don't, and I want to be clear too, we don't have a lot of information.
No,
we
don't
have plenty of news sources right now who will very confidently tell you, we have all the information. They were unreasonable. They were violent. They destroyed things. Of course, the company is going to say that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the employees are going to say, of course, we didn't destroy anything. And of course, we were blindsided by this. We don't actually know for sure either way.
Yeah.
But that's a good question to ask. Like, did you know that this is the tech you were going to work on when you joined?
So another question I have is, if the employees felt so strongly about it, why didn't they just quit? And my question to you today is, Google fired these employees. Are they going to get unemployment?
Oh, this is great questions. Okay, so first thing I want to talk about, Google firing them. Was it illegal? Default answer is no. Even if they had a contract, let's say they weren't at will, even if they had a contract, if it is true that they trespassed an office property when they weren't supposed to be there, they occupied the C-level executive's office and it disrupted work in any way, that would be a breach of their contract. So the at-will presumption, you could let them go. But even if they weren't at will, you can be fired because there's no First Amendment protections at a private employer. Your First Amendment rights, that protects you from the government suppressing your speech. It doesn't protect you from your employer saying, hey, we really do not like your opinions about Israel.
That's a huge misconception. I think a lot of people do not understand that. They think that you have free speech wherever you go in the world.
Yeah. It's like when you if you went to a friend's house for a dinner party and you got into a big heated political debate, that friend can ask you to leave their house.
Yeah. So do people have free speech in public places?
Yeah.
And what about on government property?
Generally, the rule is it can't be disruptive to the functions of government. So you can go to the courthouse steps and have a sign and say, Donald Trump is guilty. You can do that. It's your right. You do not have a right to block the doorways. You don't have a right to threaten officers trying to ensure that there's orderly execution of justice. Definitely don't approach the bench and don't touch the bailiff. Don't be.
You say that like somebody's done that.
It has happened. Don't go running into a court proceeding screaming about how you feel about a lawsuit, because you're just going to get, you might be held in contempt. You might get jailed. At a minimum, you're getting kicked out. And that's another brand of knowing what hills are worth dying on. There are some venues that maybe you think your voice is going to be heard, like busting into a courtroom where Donald Trump is having his trial. And if you scream, oh, he's guilty, like you're just disrupting the orderly process of the trial. You didn't make any effect on anyone. You didn't change anyone's mind. There are better ways to do that. If you feel strongly about a case, as an attorney, cases I'm not involved in and I feel strongly, I can file an amicus brief. And that actually will be read by a court. And it actually does matter. But just running in and screaming, that's not going to be effective. Now,
no. And speaking of being effective, another kind of wonder that I had about this Google thing is these employees that did this. I did not know that Google was funding, technology or building technology that was helping the war in these ways. And the only way I'm knowing is because they did these protests.
So in a way, they were effective.
Yeah,
if
in a
their
way they were
goal
effective.
was, so I guess that's the other thing where we need to make distinctions. If their goal was to simply raise awareness, then
They succeeded.
I guess, well, now they're stuck in this narrative war with Google, which is really tough when Google controls what kinds of narrative we see.
Google has a very big voice. These people do not have big voices unless they're interviewed by news.
And then they get hit with bad faith questioning, like, why'd you destroy property? Well,
Right.
you're begging the question. You didn't even establish whether I did or not first.
Right.
So that's the other thing I want people to be aware of. So you do have First Amendment right to free speech. If you're at a private employer, it typically doesn't apply. They can let you go for certain things. Now, complaining of harassment, discrimination, union busting, missing wages, that's protected, but it's not protected by the First Amendment. It's protected by other statutes. Now, if you work for the government, it gets a little more interesting. You actually do have free speech protections if you're a government employee, but there's limits. You can't be disruptive. Now, what's disruptive, you're going to need a jury to decide more often than not. So what Google did here, what Google's employees did here is they chose to be strategically disruptive.
I don't think their intention. Okay, well, no.
Well, they wanted to be disruptive because by disrupting Google's work is how they got, because they actually tried non-disruptive things first. They tried writing letters. They tried addressing their concerns, because like the talking heads on Fox, like, you should have used other channels. They did, and they didn't feel heard. So they deployed what I call strategic disruption. They're not disrupting for the sake of disrupting. They're saying it's like a strike. Like, we want to interrupt workflow to get your attention.
Yeah. Did they know they were going to lose their jobs?
I'd be shocked if they didn't think that was a possibility. The ones who I saw in the interview, I saw like 4 of them get interviewed, and they all seemed to know it was a possibility, and they seemed at peace with it.
Yeah.
And that goes back to what we talked about before. Like, there's just some things where there's no middle ground. Whether or not we use cover sheets on our TPS reports is a very different opinion than I feel very strongly that my labor should not support violence against innocent people.
And do you think that when you start working for a company, you should be able to have a say in the ways that customers use the product that you are working on? Or when the product gets out into the world, you helped build it, you helped sell it, and then it's up to the customer how they use it. Like, I don't know how I feel about that.
The inventor of dynamite has some opinions about that.
I bet.
Yeah. What he wanted to just make mining easier and safer ended up being a weapon of mass destruction in World War I. So you create something, at some point you let it go and it becomes what it becomes.
Yeah, and so this is why I tell people that I work with that are looking for jobs to really look at what the values are of the company that you're applying for. If they resonate with you, keep applying.
Well, that's tough because Google has written in its headquarters, don't be evil.
Really?
And I think every single one of the 28 employees, it is probably their very strong opinion that Google was being evil.
Yes, but evil is subjective.
And
Is evil subjective?
It literally is, but we can come to a consensus. And I think we can all say that regardless of how you feel about Israel-Palestine right now, I think you'd have to be a pretty sick, fucked up individual to want your work to contribute to death and destruction.
Yeah, I agree.
If you're like, ooh, I want to hurt people with my work, that's kind of fucked up.
I mean, what about everybody who works for Lockheed Martin?
See, that's the other thing.
That's the other
thing.
thing.
Well, when you look at companies like that, I've talked to people in those industries, and they see it as we are a shield.
We're protecting.
No one wants to be the offensive occupying army.
But they'll be the defensive.
There's a reason it's called the Israeli Defense Force. Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. The United States Department of Defense. No one has ever named their military department the Department of Imperial Ambition. No. No one does that.
No, you're absolutely right.
No, there is no Department of Imperialism
Nobody's
anywhere.
saying
it's
that
always going to be defense, defense.
You're right.
So when you talk to those people, they genuinely believe, and maybe they're right. I don't know, but they believe, no, my work contributes to peace and stability. I build missiles because the bad guys have missiles, and my missiles protect us from their missiles. So it sounds like the answer to missiles is more missiles.
Right.
That can't possibly end badly.
No.
So what's your advice for these 28 employees? They've very publicly been fired from a company, and they've been labeled fairly or unfairly, because 5 of them were arrested, by the way. Mm-hmm. Maybe they deserved it, maybe not. I mean, it sucks. You have any demonstration of a sufficient size, there's always one person who takes it too far. So it could be someone did destroy something. But either way, we have 28 people who were very publicly dismissed in a high-profile situation, a very politically charged and emotionally charged situation. Mm-hmm. Where do they go from here?
Nonprofit.
I think it depends on the nonprofit.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the nonprofit. But they've obviously stated their views, their political views with their actions. And so maybe their next move could be working for a company whose mission is aligned with theirs.
Maybe. Would you hire any of these people?
God. I think any recruiter or hiring manager who does their due diligence on a candidate would find this information on them and might have some questions in the interview.
I would have 2 questions.
What?
So my answer is it depends. Actually, I might have 3 questions. Were you one of the people who was arrested? What happened? Because look, I'm a lawyer and a former first responder. Cops make mistakes all the time, and cops act out of ego and just ignorance sometimes. Yeah. Just because you were arrested doesn't mean you did something wrong.
Okay.
But yeah, were you one of the people who were arrested? What was up with that? Did you break anything? Did you destroy stuff? Did you lock the CEO out of his office? What avenues did you try before this? Why did you feel that this was your last option? I'm not going to write someone off because of this. And that's what I saw in that Fox interview that drove me crazy. I think the person they interviewed had the wrong answer. The Fox News guy was like, would you hire any of these people? Absolutely, I would. Dumb answer. I want to know the facts.
Yeah.
Were you one of the people who were arrested? Why? What happened? Was it fair? Did you break anything? Because being strategically disruptive to send a message is not the same as just wanton violence and breaking things. Mm-hmm. And then what did you try to do before that? Because honestly, if they went to the CEO and said, hey, I have serious ethical concerns about what we're doing here, and the CEO is ignoring them, then yeah, they're going to escalate. But if I find out that the CEO was like, those are great concerns, I want you in my office, I want to talk about this with you, and let's engage and see, that's like, okay, it sounds like they're trying to work with you. So my answer is it depends. A very unhelpful, lawyerly answer.
I think that's a great answer because we're hearing 2 different stories right now from the people that were let go and from Google. So I probably wouldn't write these people off, but hopefully they are able to be employed in the future and that they are able to work for companies whose mission resonates with them on a deeper level, because I hope that they knew what they were going to be involved with, and that when they started working at Google, maybe they didn't.Maybe they got put on this project. Maybe they didn't even know what the technology...
I think a lot of people join companies like Google and Meta as dreamers.
Yeah.
Because it's a place where dreams can come true. You have insane amounts of money and technological ability behind you,
and benefits.
You get paid well while you're doing it.
Yep.
So it's really appealing to people. But big tech is going to do big tech things.
Yeah, world-changing things, earth-shattering things.
Literally, in this case. So, how do you feel about the way Google handled it?
I like what's his name, Sundar. How do you pronounce his last name?
I'm not going to try.
Okay, me neither.
We know who we're talking about, the CEO of Alphabet.
I read an article yesterday, and he was saying that this wasn't, I'm going to misquote him, but he said this action was not in alignment with the direction we're trying to go, and discordance or disagreement is not going to help us get where we need to go. So we need to have alignment within our company.
Really? That was a really nice way of saying dissidents won't be tolerated.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sends a message. I think that's what Google wanted to do, is send a message, especially now where we see it's totally different than speaking out on issues that are important to you, but unionization. companies are getting really scared because there's so much union activity and so many union drives happening all at once. Volkswagen looks like they're going to join the UAW now. Mercedes is looking it's going to go that way. Tesla is giving its people raises just to sort of stop them from looking into it. I think companies are really trying to flex their muscle right now.
Yeah. Why? I've always wondered this. Why are some companies unionized and some aren't? Why isn't big tech unionized?
Well, you have to remember, so one thing about employment lawyers you should know, most employment lawyers are not on your side. Most employment lawyers represent companies and help them keep labor costs low by keeping you broke and isolated and keeping your bargaining power low. Workers' rights lawyers like me, we tend to be outnumbered. We do fine, by the way. It's not like, oh my God, it's this invincible army of... There's just more of them because there's just more work for them to do. Because most employment actions, even if they're unfair, are legal. I come in when what they did was illegal. So naturally, there's fewer of me. But anyway, to get back to your question, why are some places unionized and some aren't? Unionization takes time. Anyone who's ever organized a group trip knows how hard it is to get just 5 adults on the same page.
Yeah, true.
Now imagine you want to get 500 adults on the same page.
Or 50,000.
Or 50,000. And while you're doing that, you have an entity, the employer, who does not want that to happen. So really, really clumsy example. You're planning a group trip to Cabo. You want 6 of your friends to do it. But the airline that's going to fly you there doesn't want you to go on your group trip to Cabo. And they're fighting you every step of the way. And then they go pay a consulting company, a labor relations consultant, I guess in this case we'll call it the group trip relations consultant, and pay them millions of dollars to hand flyers to your friends telling them that, no, it's in your best interest not to go to Cabo. Oh. Don't you know that Cabo is dangerous? Don't you know it's expensive? Don't you know you'll get a sunburn? What is Alli really up to? Why does she want to take you to Cabo? What are her motives? Oh. These disinformation campaigns, and it sucks, they're very effective. They're very effective. These labor relations consultants, they're union busters by another name. They get paid a lot of money to confuse and frighten employees and make them worried that if they unionize, their life will be worse.
Really?
Which is objectively false. The data shows that the overwhelming number of unionized employees across all industries, they expect to earn about 16% more.
Really?
But then we look at specific industries like auto, those numbers start going 20, 30% more.
That makes sense.
Over your lifetime. And your job is safer. Getting fired for no reason, you're suddenly removed from the at-will presumption if you're unionized. So not all unions are good unions. Some charge too high of dues and don't do enough to stand up for you, and they're shitty negotiators, and you have a shitty contract, and it's a shitty union. That happens. Huh. But overwhelmingly, you are better off in a union than without one.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So anyway, that's why most people are not unionized and most employers are not. But here's the other side of the coin. If you don't want your employees to unionize, don't give them a reason to unionize.
Yeah, pay them well, treat them well.
Yeah, don't announce record profits while also announcing, hey, we can't afford pay raises this year.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
So, final thoughts, Alli. We're going into an election year, a very hot one. This is going to be one of the most controversial and upsetting for a lot of people.
This is going to be an insane season.
And a lot of people are going to feel compelled to speak. Like, there's just some issues on the table where there is no middle ground.
Yeah.
And you feel strongly. So what advice would you have for employees going into this election year?
Employees?
Yeah.
What advice would I have? Understand what issues, what people are voting on. Mm-hmm. Know how you feel about those. Know how they affect you personally and how they affect your communities. And make educated decisions, which means you have to educate yourself and understand that the news is a business. And if you can find impartial news, which is sometimes very hard to find, use that for due diligence.
I like All Sides News a lot. Actually, they followed me back the other day. I was real excited.
Congrats.
Yeah, I was pretty stoked.
Shout out. Oh, I'll check them out.
Yeah. They're pretty cool because they present both sides. They show a centrist position, a left-leaning position, a right-leaning position.
I like that.
News, which is pretty cool to kind of see how things are characterized. But I think that's solid advice. I think knowing when you are speaking, what is the purpose of your speech? Are you speaking because you're hoping to change minds? At the office, it's probably not going to happen. I would say do it outside work on your own time, and maybe you will change minds, but that's a pretty big risk.
Yeah, or are you speaking to educate people only?
If you're speaking up to defend yourself because you feel attacked, just example, if you have someone in your office who is a big Trump supporter and they're real excited about deporting all the quote-unquote illegals, and then that person says, bye-bye, Alli, because I know you don't have papers, or I know you're from Mexico. Bye-bye. As soon as Trump takes office, you're going to cry. I can't wait for you to be deported. Like, that's very mean-spirited, nasty behavior. And that is attacking you based on national origin. It's protected. At that point, definitely speak up. Protect yourself. Or the flip side of it. If someone is saying, oh, I'm not going to have any Republicans in this office. If you're a Republican, pack your shit and go. In most states, that's not protected. In California, it actually might be.
Interesting.
Yeah, California Labor Code sections 1102 and 1101 actually protect your right to engage in political activities, and
that's
prohibits employers from. So we've got two examples. One is you've got someone saying, oh, I can't wait for this policy that I think my candidate is going to do, and you better watch out. That sort of thing, speak up, protect yourself. The other side, harder, but there actually is a case. In California, it was in Los Angeles in 2003. It was Alli v. What was it? Alli v. Focus Publishing Group. This was 2003. And basically what had happened was the employee on their own time had gone on a radio show in Los Angeles and had some political opinions that the company didn't agree with. And they fired that employee for that.
Ooh.
Yeah. And what was very interesting about that case is the company ultimately did prevail on other grounds, but the court made it very clear, the question of whether this political speech outside of work is protected, not under the First Amendment, but under California Labor Code 1101, 1102, it actually may be protected. So state by state, it'll change. Overwhelmingly, I think the old school advice applies. Politics in the office is probably not a good idea.
Probably not.
Yeah. Have you dealt with anyone with very outspoken political opinions in an office?
No, actually. No, most people that I've worked with, for most of my career, I've been the younger one in the office because I'm in the first 10 years of my career. A lot of people are in the back 9 of their career. So I think they know not to talk about politics at work. Also religion, also money. Like there's some things that are just kind of taboo to talk about when you're at work because it's business, not personal. And so I haven't actually run into anybody that's had really strong political views. My dad does, but I've never worked with him.
All our dads do.
All our dads do.
Well, frankly, I do. I'm really outspoken, but I see it as my job. I'm a workers' rights attorney. It's inherently political what I do because if I want to say, oh my God, you were fired because you were the only Republican in the office, I can't do anything about that unless there is a statutory protection for you. So obviously I'm going to have a very big opinion like, hey, I think we should have rules that protect certain political speech. I don't think I want to live in a world where employers can use the threat of taking away your money and your benefits to compel you to support certain political opinions. I think that's a dangerous road. I don't want to go down that road.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds like a different country than the U.S.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, Alli, we talked about some great stuff today. Thank you for not holding back.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me on here.
So what's next for you?
Well, I actually have something really exciting that I'm working on.
Ooh, what do we got?
So, I recently left my job. I wanted to go into career coaching to make a bigger impact and dive deeper with individuals. And so I have this cohort of people that I'm coaching to get jobs. And it's actually very time consuming. And I am actually changing my mind, which I do a lot. Sometimes I make impulsive decisions, which we've learned.
Yeah.
But I want to start gearing more towards starting a community for people that want to climb that corporate ladder. A lot of people don't see the corporate ladder anymore. They don't understand what the next rung is, what next level they can be reaching for.
Corporate ladder is a deceptive term because it creates this impression that the path is clear
Right.
and linear
Yeah.
and straight, and it's not.
Yeah,
It's
so
none of those things.
So I want to help illuminate that path for people and start a community on School which is, I think it's Alex Hormozy's community platform.
Okay.
Kind of like Slack. And I want to start a community of people that are interested in career development, want to know tips and tricks, want to learn from me with all these mistakes that I've made and all these things that I've learned.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have a lot of other people. I'd love to have you on as a guest speaker.
Aww.
And I have
I'd love to. That sounds fun.
awesome. I have a bunch of other friends on social media that are in the employment or the career space. And so we're going to have guest speakers. And it's going to be almost like our own social media platform for career professionals.
I love this for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so anyone listening, where else can they find you? How can they get more Alli?
I'm everywhere. I feel like people have enough Alli, but if you really want more, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I post every day.
What's your handle on LinkedIn?
Allison Peck with a little lightning bolt emoji.
Okay.
So that's me on LinkedIn. DM me anytime. I love to network and chat with people on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram a little more heavily than I am on TikTok because of the potential TikTok ban. How do you feel about that, by the way?
I do not like the broader implications. I do not like the antitrust implications because the TikTok ban is really a forced sale, is what it is.
Right.
And what is happening is our Congress is creating a situation where a major competitor to the almost monopolies that we have in our social media space, like here we have a legitimate competitor that forces them to try to be better for consumers and build a more attractive product and maybe respect our privacy more. Like having a threat like that forces them to behave. But by Congress saying, hey, we're going to ban them if they don't sell for pennies on the dollar to one of you guys. So for me, my concern is less about the free speech implications, although those are valid concerns. I see some really big antitrust concerns that make me upset because it's my personal opinion that monopolies threaten our freedom and threaten our prosperity more than almost anything else that's happening in this case. But that's just my take. What do you think?
I honestly don't have an opinion. I've thought about it a lot and I've been listening to what they're doing in Congress and in the news about it. And I don't think it's fair to do this forced sale because TikTok has said we're not going to sell.
Yeah, you just won't have access to our product anymore,
Right.
which in my opinion strengthens the monopoly that Meta and Google have. I mean, it's Meta, Google, and X.
Yeah.
And if what about Mastodon? No one's on Mastodon. No one cares.
I've never
What
even
about
heard
Truth
about
Social?
that.
Only your weird uncle's on Truth Social.
My dad too.
Like, no, there's so many people. Oh, that's not true. Like, there's so many. No one cares. We've got the big players.
Yeah.
There's Coke. There's Pepsi. No one cares about Mr. Pibb.
No.
Okay. Oh, I love Mr. Pibb. Great for you.
You're the only one.
One of 12.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm on Mastodon. Great. It's all 20 of you have a great time. The truth is we don't have a lot of competition in this space, and we have massive concentration of power in these spaces. And
Yeah. I hope TikTok doesn't go away because have you ever scrolled on TikTok and you just learn things like you learn how to sew and then you learn about cats and then you learn about whatever.
Yeah.
And then have you ever scrolled on Instagram Reels? It's garbage.
And I think our algorithms are a little different on each side.
You don't have cat stuff?
I don't have cat stuff. I get a mixed bag of things. I'll tell you what I don't get. I don't get dancing teenagers.
Neither do I. People say TikTok is for dancing teenagers.
Yeah,
I
do you
don't
know
get any
why? It's because it's showing you the content you interact with. You're telling on yourself. All it shows me is teenage girls shaking their butts. It's like, yeah, because that's what you keep watching.
Yeah.
Those are the videos you're liking and saving and commenting on, and that's why it's showing you that. You're telling on yourself so hard, bro. And then also there's a lot of people who say, oh, TikTok, it's ruining this generation. It's teaching them to be lazy or anti-American. TikTok is just a platform. It's like saying libraries are making people lazy or something. It's like, it's not the library that did that. It's whatever books they chose to read in there.
Yeah.
It's just, you go into this forum and what you do inside of it is really up to you. It's just a platform. There's valuable stuff on TikTok.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not good or bad. It's a tool.
Yeah. National Geographic's on TikTok. I mean, you can learn about animals on there if you want.
Yeah, I have lots of animal stuff on my stuff.
Yeah.
It's like interview tips and animals is basically my For You page.
What are you going to do if TikTok goes away?
Probably be more heavily on Instagram
Yeah.
and invite more people to my new community, because essentially that'll be, if you want to learn about job stuff and how to move up in the world of the professionals, that's the place to be.
You're doing the right thing diversifying. I'm much more active on Instagram now than TikTok. TikTok, I found it hard to build the community I wanted to. 'Cause you can just do more on TikTok, or on Instagram, you can just do a bit more. TikTok,
you can message people.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that on TikTok, but I found the messaging quality is really low. The comments are limited. You can only comment so many characters, and it's really limiting for discussion.
Yeah.
Stories, I don't like the way stories work on TikTok.
Neither do I. I also don't like the fact that on Instagram, I forgot what I was going to say, but I like Instagram a lot better because people have more thoughtful. The anonymity. So you can have an anonymous TikTok profile and you can comment something super hateful and nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
On Instagram, it's tied to your Meta, your Facebook account. So you can't really be that anonymous on Instagram.
I mean, there's still bots and there's anonymous troll
Sure.
accounts, but it's definitely also Instagram's better about controlling duplicates and fakes. If
Good.
you look up Attorney Ryan on TikTok, you'll get something like 500 or 600 fake Attorney Ryan profiles. Some of them have tens of thousands of followers.
That's so scary.
TikTok doesn't
and they're
care.
selling stuff and they're like, WhatsApp me money
Yeah,
and
I know.
Bitcoin.
TikTok hasn't taken that threat seriously, and also it's very clear they're trying to just be the next Temu or Amazon or something. Everyone who's opened up TikTok lately, it keeps putting you on the shops page. It's like, buy this stupid plastic dongle. I don't need a plastic dongle. What is this?
I have never bought anything from TikTok.
And I never
I'm
will.
very proud to say
I
that.
never will.
No.
I don't know what it is. I don't know where it's coming from.
Who am I giving my credit card information
Who
to?
am I giving my information to? Because I know from experience as a creator that TikTok doesn't give two shits about safety. Not to say Meta does. I'm not saying they're any better. But no, actually, do you know what's funny? I tried buying something on Meta 2 years ago on Instagram. I saw an ad for a cool jacket, paid for it. It was just a scam, drop shipping bullshit. I was so upset. It was just some little shack in Vegas was the business address. I never got the jacket.
Oh God.
I got my money back. I tracked the guy down and I was like, you will give me my $60. I went on a warpath over $60.
It's the principle.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, Alli, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for not being afraid of the hot button issues. Thank you for making mistakes, learning from them, and being open about it and not hiding them. And thank you for the community you're building on School.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was so good meeting you finally, and I'm really glad to have chatted with you.
I can't take no loss. I don't even know what it costs. I hit the ground, then I go off.